Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your hosts, TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown. Jay, how's it going, my guy?
Bro, it's a lot of basketball happening at one time, bro. NBA regular season wrapping up. WNBA draft, as of us recording this, is around the corner. TV. NBA playoffs around the corner with the NBA play-in tournament kicking off on Wednesday, bro. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
bro. Basketball time is lit right now.
100%. I mean, you guys are going to know the WNBA draft results when this video comes out, but we got the WNBA draft, like you mentioned. The play-in tournaments, we're not going to talk about it in this episode today, but we will be making like TikToks, just giving our predictions on who's going to get the 7th and 8th seeds for sure, coming up very soon. But yeah, Jay, since we reached the end of the season, we knew we had to do it to him. Freaking the Hit Your Free Throws NBA award show, man. The 65 game rule has definitely changed some things, but it's still going to be a pretty dope award show. How'd you feel about it?
So, I'm not going to lie, compared to like All NBA, where it got really nasty the further we got down the list, these awards, when you're just talking about picking the one player for the awards, or even like rookie of the year and like the all rookie teams, where for all rookie, for example, you don't have to worry about games played as aggressively. I think it was pretty easy. I'm gonna be honest with you. For the most part, I feel like whoever I thought deserved said awards before the month of April started, I feel like I don't think I saw anything of the month of April that knocked me off my pivot too aggressively. Maybe made me think a little harder about it, but not like fall off my pivot completely to change my mind.
100%. I think it's going to be a pretty dope award show. Again, we're going to be going through all of the NBA awards that we got going on here. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. We're not doing Clutch Player of the Year. We're just
no facts, because
no. I'm sorry. They're just like we've done the last couple of years. We're like, nah, it's not worth trying to go into. But yeah, we got that. We have all the normal ones, and we have a couple of Hit Your Free Throw ones sprinkled in there too. So it should be a fun episode. So sit back, relax, and enjoy basically us recapping some of the best that's coming through this season. So we're gonna get into that very shortly. But before we do that, Jay, we do have to plug our other platforms. Make sure you follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at the Routine Jumper. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of Hit Your Free Throws podcast, make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content. You got the picks, news, series, the playoff recaps that we're going to be doing pretty damn soon. We got the clips. We got all that stuff. So make sure you check out all the daily content over there. In terms of the podcast networks, make sure you leave a review, subscribe on Spotify and Apple. And if you're watching on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. We appreciate all of you guys supporting from all different angles. And again, we have another great episode coming from you guys for you guys today. Jay, you ready to get into this?
Yes, sir.
100%. And like I told Jay at the top, we're going to start with the rookies. We're going to start with the first years. Well, we're going to do a bit of both. We're going to do the Rookie of the Year, and since we didn't do it in the last episode, we're going to go with all rookie teams. Jay, what do you think? You think we should like keep them waiting a little bit? Should we do the all rookie teams first and then go all rookie?
Let's go ahead and do all rookie teams and then save the actual Rookie of the Year to kind of cap that section off.
Sounds good. And you know what, Jay? I'll list on my all rookie first team to start off with. Again, no positions, no nothing, and luckily for us, Jay, no 65 game rule. So we can go into this here. My first team, Jay, got Con Knipple, Cooper Flag, VJ Edgecombe, Dylan Harper, and Maxime Reynaud.
Really? Okay, so it's funny. Yeah. Maxime is a guy that I thought would be a late addition to my second team, is what I've been trying to figure out. So we have one difference in first team that I think is pretty notable here. Maxime has grown on me, but TV, our list is the same with Con Knipple, Cooper Flag, VJ Edgecombe, and Dylan Harper. The part where we differ is actually because I have a little bit more support for your boy, Colin Murray Boyles. Man, I gotta be honest.
I was gonna be the homer here.
Look, man, I gotta be honest with you. We have to make it clear to everyone that you could make an argument. You could make an argument at the small ball 5 position for Colin Murray Boyles that he may have arguably been the most versatile defender on basically any other team and maybe could have been considered the best defender on your team, even with Scotty Barnes on the
Second
squad.
most important defender on our entire roster. He has been
Yeah.
incredible on that end.
I think that is an underrated thing for a rookie out the gate, especially on a team like this one where they had real question marks at the 5 spot. TV. As a small ball 5, Colin Murray Boyle stepped in and filled a really significant hole for a team that was expecting to hopefully have a pretty solid year from Jakob Poeltl. And granted, he got his stints here and there, but the back problems really hurt him throughout, especially the early portion of the season. And that's when Colin Murray Boyle's got to kind of round out an actual role for himself as this versatile Draymond Green-esque kind of defender for the Raptors. And I think that although, look, the counting stats are not going to jump out at you. 8.5 points per game, 5 rebounds, 1.9 assists, didn't really have any blocks, didn't really have any steals. He was kind of like floating around 1 and 1 for both of them. But at the end of the day, you got to he's one of those guys, kind of similar to Draymond to a lesser degree too, right? Like, you almost got to cut the tape on to fully understand the defensive versatility and understand the impact on that side of the floor. Offensively, it's not going to scream out at you. But defensively, the dude just made his presence felt throughout this season. And more particularly, like I said, he came in as a guy who had a pretty well-polished offensive game for you guys, quite frankly. Like, he was a guy that coming out of college had a bit of a solid offensive game that could have brought more of like a post presence to the team. Instead, comes to the team, finds out, yo, I need to play big time defense if I'm going to see minutes on the floor. And not only did that, but exceeded at a high level doing that for this team as they make the run to the playoffs. As like a legitimate top 5 seed in the East, by the way.
I hate to have to go against this. I have to freaking like argue against this dude that Maxime already know. But I appreciate it because I will be continuing to talk more about Colin Murray Boyles, mostly because, and there's one thing I wanna shout out with him too. And thank you for giving him like this praise, but I'm gonna add something, even another layer to it. This guy is one of the freaking toughest dudes in the league.
Yes,
one of the
already
toughest dudes in the league. This guy has 2 different injuries in his thumb right now. He's wearing a whole cast on his hand just so he can freaking play basketball. He has a shoulder blade injury going into the playoffs. This guy has been beaten, battered, and bruised throughout the season, being a 6'7" center, and he's still a fantastic offensive rebounder. He is someone who is going to contest at every point. And not only that, he's becoming slowly but surely a connector on the offensive end. And Jay, you mentioned the polished offensive game. You see bits and pieces of it throughout the season. I do think he's going to even have an improvement there, and that's what you're going to see the biggest jump in him in his second season. But in terms of defensive impact, I don't think you can name 1 or 2 other rookies that have a better defensive impact than him already out the gate. He's so stout there. Someone who's coming in at already NBA level strength at 240 pounds. And you'll see in this series versus the Cavs, because we're gonna need him when you have to deal with the big bodies of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Switchability, guarding, pick and roll coverages. He's already starting to get very good at those aspects of the game. The defense is already there. The offensive game is gonna continue to develop. I'm super excited that you have him on your first team. For me, he was a 100% lock on my second team, but because it's time for me to talk about Maxime right now, because I've been a big fan of his. I mean, like, shout out to you, by the way, going into last year's draft, freaking one of your sleepers going into that was Maxime Reynaud, and I was like, man, he's going to the Kings. I guess I'm glad he's getting the opportunity. Jay, here's some of his stats post All-Star break: 19 points per game, 9 rebounds, 60% shooting from the field, almost 35% from 3. This guy's took all of this mess, this garbage dumpster fire that has been the Sacramento Kings, and has been one of the lone bright spots on that team. Somehow, some way, Precious Achiuwa has become another one of those bright spots, but Maxime Reynaud, hopefully paired up with a potential top 3 pick, because Lord knows the Kings need it. But now you have someone who you feel comfortable with. I don't know as a long-term starter, but you'll give him like a couple more years at the starting position, and maybe potentially be more comfortable moving on with Domantas Sabonis and seeing how he pairs up with hopefully some of the top picks in this draft. He has a great offensive touch to the game, already a very good rebounder for a rookie, and just his development just throughout the season. And yes, you could say, oh, the Kings, the points need to come from somewhere. he's stepping up in a big way, and even and has played. Honestly, these Kings have been kind of spoiled to some of these playoff teams late in this season, and Maxi Marino has been a big part of that.
Yeah.
I see like good potential in his game, and I just can't wait to see how he does in second year. But I think the second half surge, especially been given the opportunity, he's been very good, and honestly enough for me to be honestly kind of that last addition to the first team for me. But he's had a really good season.
Yeah, Maxime was one of those that I had a really hard time leaving off first team just because, again, a certain natural bias attached to the fact that he was a guy coming into the draft class that I was like, yo, watch out, especially as like a semi like DeMontis Sabonis type of player, as a guy that I think could be pretty dangerous as an offensive and defensive rebounder, has done pretty well with that. Hasn't really shown off a ton of the range and touch that I think he has from deep just yet, because he's not having the most efficient season from back there. Also, isn't really taking a ton of them, so that's totally fine as well. Of course, he never to me was viewed as some kind of big time rim protector or anything like that. This is a true and true big man stretch big ability type. He's a guy that I think the best version of him can be a Kristaps Porzingis light type of player. I think at the best version of himself, but I think as a rookie on a team that's just like in pure disarray, to have the kind of season that he's had, and more particularly, I'm super glad that you read off his post All-Star stats where they kind of really opened up the studio space for him a lot with the fact that this team just was decimated across the board and just
Yes.
seemed like a team that just like mentally has been shot in the chest. Surprisingly, they're looking to bring Duck Christie back after this season. Absolutely shocked by that by itself, of just having like
Kings,
one of the
bro. It's the
worst.
Kings.
I mean, dude, it is what it is. At the end of the day, the one smart thing he did was he let my boy Maxime cook. Now, the front office has to do their job to figure out what they do with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Malik Monk, DeMontis
Westbrook,
Sabonis.
all
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
Westbrook. They have to figure that stuff out on the other end. But one thing I can say from a coaching standpoint is we definitely got to see the best version of Maxime Reynard on the second portion of this season. And although, that has a lot to do with him being in the game without a DeMontis around and stuff like that, I think he's a guy that may not be like a foundational big or something like that moving forward, but I think he's like a legit rotation piece for like a good basketball team. So whether that's the Kings or somebody else's
He's gonna
TBD.
be like
But
a 10 to 12 year pro, bro. This guy,
yeah,
he just knows how to play the game. This guy knows
yeah,
his spots, and I think he's just gonna just continue to develop that throughout his career. I'm excited to see at least with all the doldrums that are happening in Sacramento right now, you have a couple of bright spots. I mean, near the end, you got him, you got Nick Clifford showing like bits and pieces over here. They always got some young talent. They got some young talent,
yeah.
and my boy Devin Carter's getting some minutes too. So glad to finally see him get some minutes, even though it took to the very end of this season to get some. So shout out to them. The other person I want to highlight here, because we're probably not going to talk about him in Rookie of the Year, but Dylan Harper. Dylan
Yeah.
Harper has been,
Quiet year, man. Quiet
he's
year
just
amongst the Giants, man.
yeah, no, and also, I mean, he's playing for the freaking Spurs. This team has title aspirations. This guy's a freaking backup one or two guard, but he's already one of the most polished rookies in this league. Like
Yeah,
his inside finishing for a guard is incredible.
yeah,
The finishing around the rim, and once he gets the playmaking down, and once a couple more years under his belt, this guy's truly going to be a foundational piece. Him, Wemby, hopefully Stephon Castle as well. It's just like you can't blame the dude for getting put on one of the best teams in the league. And
right.
he's making the most off of it coming off the bench. I'm excited to see how he does in the playoffs. But you could tell this man's NBA ready, and this guy ready, like even off the bench is screaming star potential, superstar, like near superstar potential. And I'm excited to see how he develops over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those people that you said it kind of in passing there, of the idea of him being like this just NBA ready guy out the gate, like fits in the cog of the system. He's a guy that I feel like the fact that he's fit so well within a three guard system with San Antonio goes to show you just how special he could have been if he landed with the Utah Jazz where Ace Bailey did, or if he were the guard taken by the Pelicans instead of Jeremiah Fears, right? Like
Yes.
there's a lot of different, I mean, shoot, how interesting would have it been if he had been the pick instead of Con Knipple, right? Not to say that Con Knipple didn't fit perfectly. I think looking back at it with the skill sets that they both bring, because they both bring very different things to the table, I think Con ended up being the right guy in the grand scheme of things. But just Dylan's ability to adapt his game around other star talent makes it where I think he could have been just as effective with a team like the Hornets, for example. So I think the biggest thing for me is I look at a guy like Dylan, and same way you were kind of talking about Maxime being a guy who's going to like for sure have a 10 to 12 plus year career. Dylan just feels like a guy that if he never makes an all-star team, he's always going to find his way to the bag. He's always going to be a guy that's in the conversation for a 80 plus million dollar, especially with the way the cap's going up nowadays, 80 plus to 100 plus million-dollar contract on the table for years to come past his rookie contract, because he's going to be a guy that like not only has shown proven talent as a guy who can run the show on the second unit for a team, but he's shown that he can be an interchangeable part next to real star talent. Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle. I mean, what they've been able to do with De'Aaron Fox this year, who's like quietly had like I think quietly his strongest year in the league, quite frankly. Statistically, it might not be his best year, but I think it's quietly his strongest year in the NBA as a part of this Spurs team. And Dylan Harper, with those guys having a lot to prove, Dylan Harper comes in and he just plays ball the right way and fits in the midst of all of it. I think he might be, I want to say, of all the players that got taken, once you go past Kahn and Cooper, I think Dylan will finish as having the best career, arguably, of everybody in this class.
I still see freaking multiple time All-Star for this dude.
And I think there's an upside there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's 100%. I'm super excited to see how he is. And again, just the NBA ready stuff. I mean, as a guard, freaking over 50% from the field is already crazy. As someone who is like getting like this much like on the ball touches, but you can just tell by the way he just attacks the rim, like no fear, freaking like actually like knows like how to finish. Very excited to see how he does. But yeah, very similar all rookie first teams.
Yeah.
Moving on to the second team though, you mentioned you have Raynaud on your second team. Yeah. I have CMB safely on my second team. Who do you have as the rest of your second team?
So for the rest of my second team, this one hurt, man, because there's somebody that I really, really like that I had to bump off the list, and they're going to just be a very solid honorable mention. But to round out my team, so next to Maxime Raynaud, it would be Cedric Coward for the Grizzlies. I think Ace Bailey still deserves to be on this list, especially with what he's been able to do post All-Star break. And then the two Pelicans guys, Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears, fill out the five for me.
Jay, we don't have to go through much with this one because we have the exact same second team, and it seems like it was just CMB and Maxime Raynaud just switching spots being the same.
Yeah.
Because I do have the same. I have both Pelicans here: Jeremiah Fears, Derek Queen, Cedric Coward, Ace Bailey. I wonder who your honorable mention is. I'm going to tell you mine. It was Trey Johnson.
Okay, so I like what Trey's done, but I think the Wizards, I'm gonna openly say that the Wizards were not a team that I had on my radar a ton this season, number one. Number two, I can openly say that his fit for the team kind of just was exactly what we expected it to be coming into the year, was just like, can he be a refined, very polished go-to scorer? And in the minutes he was given, he was able to kind of just fulfill the role that he best fits. My honorable mention though was Ryan Kalkbrenner for the Hornets. Like as a center, I think that entire rookie class for the Charlotte Hornets was just very good. Zion James, very good as a point of attack defender this year. I found a stat for Ryan Kalkbrenner that I thought was crazy dope. Okay, it says he blocked 6.4% of opponents' 2-point attempts per game at a rate that would have tied for third in the NBA if he had played enough minutes, and held opponents to 54.9% shooting at the rim, which is near the top 10. And he also averaged 4 offensive rebounds per 36, made literally 75% of his shots, and paired with Moussa Diabate, gave the Charlotte Hornets, surprisingly, one of the most successful center rotations in the league outside of like Nebius Keita and Luka Garza, who like low-key like outperformed expectations coming into the year. So for a Charlotte Hornets team that we came into the season after moving off of Mark Williams, they're like, yo, what do they got at center, bro? Like, what is going to happen here? Ryan Kalkbrenner, they take him as like a veteran big out of the Big East, and he comes in as an immediate rim protector and did a good job doing it. I hated leaving him off because of how much emphasis I put on defense that moved Colin Murray-Boyles to first team, but I think the biggest thing for me was the player that I didn't want to put Ryan Kalkbrenner over, but I did consider actually was Derek Queen, to be honest with you.
I feel like I felt like Derek Queen was more of a lock for me in this one.
Okay.
It was mostly like the Ace Bailey kind of late season resurgence that kind of like stamped himself as like that all rookie second team kind of like guy for me, and that's why like I feel like they're like Trey Johnson maybe had like his moments. I actually kind of like not like worried, but I'm like I want him to get like continue to like develop in this role because I do think he has a chance to be a real shot maker in this league. But with
Mm.
Trey Young coming back next year and like this new upcoming draft pick, I just don't know if like his minutes are gonna get cut into too much. I hope that Trey Johnson still is like a big part of this Wizards rotation next year. But Derek Queen, I feel like there's too much special like we saw too much special things from him in the early parts of the season that
Fair.
like as someone who's like this unique sort of rookie coming in with the passing ability, the I wouldn't say like Jokic type, like kind of like facilitation off the top of the key, but
Mm.
the playmaking, the way that he's able to get to the rim on like on multiple like in multiple ways, like without being like super fast, super athletic, that type of stuff. Yes, that felt like maybe eon. It felt like eons ago at this point, but
Mm.
he showed like a lot of special things, and like even though he has fallen out the rotation because let's be honest, the Pelicans, there's no need for them to tank because they don't have a freaking draft pick, so they started playing most of their veterans on the roster more as the season got on and as much as the more they got healthy. But Derek Queen, I felt like showed enough of like the playmaking and that kind of special ability like as a post player that early season stuff kind of like carried along, and then he has had some like pretty good games near the end of the season as well. That he has been like he's done like enough this year where it's like okay, I feel like he's like a second team almost lock for me at this point. I was like only one like again that kind of like more jumped into my periphery like as like the last 20 games have gone on is more like Ace Bailey is like he looked really good when like he's been given the opportunity there by Utah.
Yeah, I think that Ace Bailey, the interesting part about him was he was going to be a guy that quietly got forgotten in this class based on the way the beginning portion of the season started, man. I mean, you got to think about it. He showed a couple flashes early on in the season, but there was kind of a question as to whether or not he was kind of getting lost in the sauce within that Will Hardy rotation. And then the second half of the season, post All-Star break, he really picked it up, ticked up to like, what, 18 points per game, started to really see the ball go through the hole, a little bit more consistency. You saw that on-ball creation that was so special at Rutgers kind of come out in a real way. And it shows you the upside of him as a shot creator, right? And it's going to, I think Ace Bailey's emergence in the second half of the season is going to be a real deciding factor in how they decide to go about tackling the NBA draft. Of course, where they land is also going to be a very important aspect of this too, right? Because I think if Utah lands number one, I think they still are not afraid to draft AJ DeBonta. It feels like everything points to AJ DeBonta as the number one pick. I mean, the dude went to Utah Prep. He goes to BYU. Feels like the storybook ending is for him to wear a Utah Jazz jersey. But I feel like Ace Bailey's shot making ability, it doesn't make me scared of him fitting on a team that has AJ on it. Can they start next to each other? I'm not sure if they can do that just yet because I don't think Ace has
It'd
brought
be
the
interesting.
forward
I would
place.
give it a try. I would give it a try.
And I totally agree with you. I think it would be a scary fit though. When you talk about the team trying to play a lot bigger, there's a world where I mean you have Triple J, you have Walker Kessler, you have Laurie Markkinen, right? And funny enough, you still have Keontae George. Like it's funny when you really think about it. It's going to be a big question for that battle between an AJ DeBonta and an Ace Bailey for that starting spot. Because I mean, I named four of the guys that if they bring Walker Kessler back, like those four guys are starting. TV, Keontae George, Triple J. Walker Kessler, Laurie Markkinen, those four guys are starting for sure. So that battle for the quote unquote 2-3 spot between Ace Bailey and AJ DeBonta, it feels like the answer would be AJ out the gate. But even if it is AJ, if your starting six starts with those six guys, I mean that's a team you might got to worry about in the Western Conference next season, at least
Yeah.
as a fringe, type of playoff team.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm super excited to see this Utah team might be scarily a little bit like deep next year, especially
Yeah.
with the way that Cody Williams. I know we kind of did some on his rookie season, but he actually had a pretty solid like sophomore season coming out of it. But you have them. I'm super excited to see how this Utah Jazz team is going to look, especially like healthy. But yeah, shout out to the rest of the guys. Quick fire with the rest of them. Jeremiah Fears. I think he's going to be a nice lead guard for them. He's had some massive scoring performances like later this season, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The finishing around the rim is kind of questionable, but I think that comes with just him like kind of getting into his NBA body. Because, bro, I think he's like one of the lightest guys in the league. I know he's like super like explosive, but he doesn't really have the body control or the finishing ability just yet in comparison to like a Dylan Harper, which we talked about a lot like in first team. But Shot creation, the speed is undeniable. One of the more athletic, one guards in this league. Excited for him. And then Cedric Coward, just all reliable all season long. He's had he had some really big moments. I think at some point he was like number 2 on the rookie ladder, like in the
Mhm.
early parts of the season. But
Yeah.
just been solid all the way through for the Grizzlies. And once they start figuring out that core, he's gonna be that guy who's gonna be like the quintessential fourth or fifth starter on like a playoff near championship roster. I think Cedric Coward, again, one of those players, long NBA career, and he's gonna just fit so many needs of a lot of teams.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing too is like you think about Cedric Coward's overall like draft profile, right? Coming out of Washington State, it was like still a little bit raw. Most of his best like performances came against lower level talent. His real pop off came off when he was playing at a lower level the season prior. And the big questions about him coming into the league was like, is it going to translate? Like, are we looking at another guy where he just kind of beat up on lower competition, stats stood out, and then he had a season at Washington State that ended really early due to injury, and now like what are we getting? Like in Memphis, it's funny. Memphis, although it was used as a pick that they weren't originally going to own, because of course that pick was picked up from the Orlando Magic trade for Desmond Bain, Memphis ended up being like the perfect kind of location for a guy like Cedric Coward, where you had these big questions about what his upside was, what his production at the next level could look like, and the only way you figure something like that out starts with like being able to explore the studio space. And even if the Grizzlies didn't necessarily mean for this season to maybe go this haywire, because I don't think they did, in coming into the year, I don't know if they wanted to trade Triple J after moving off of Desmond Bain. I don't know if the plan was like to actually start really aggressively shopping John Morant. I don't know if they came into the year with that kind of anticipation, right? But it kind of worked out in their favor of like being able to see someone like Cedric Coward really shine early on. And did he hit a little bit of a rookie wall? I think he did.
A
If
little
I'm
bit,
being
yeah.
honest with you, he did hit a bit of a rookie wall that made you wonder coming off of the early portion of the season where he was top 3 in rookie of the year. He really, really fell off the map towards the back half of the season. Let's not forget that Memphis kind of started really mailing it in too, which made things a little bit more difficult. Because I mean, Lord have mercy, there was some games for Memphis where I mean, you thought
Yeah,
folks were gonna drop 160 on them some nights, right?
honestly.
So, I mean, there's a lot going against Cedric Coward beyond his just individual performances, but that's a guy that I feel like, again, it's weird to keep like phrasing it this way, but like this class to me, if you take out like, I think Con, Cooper, Dylan, and like VJ he might be like a Jamal Murray type in the sense that like I feel like he might always end up being in the conversation for like an all-star team, but like maybe he like just kind of evades him for a while, and then maybe one year he just kind of bursts on the scene and finally kind of takes
The
it
one
for
or two
himself.
time All Star. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of those four, as much as I love Ace Bailey, as outside of those four, I feel like this was just a really good draft class for like we have players who are gonna have true rotational value through at least 2 contracts. Like these are guys that like aren't gonna like we're not gonna have too many like Jalen Smith types that like got traded within the first 3 years of their
Right,
rookie
right,
contract.
right.
Or
Yeah.
like you're not gonna have those guys that like a Killian Hayes who like after his rookie contract falls off, like he completely falls off the earth and can't find his way. Like I think a lot of the guys in the first round of this past rookie class really, really found footing for themselves where they can have like a long term career. I mean, shoot, somebody who wasn't drafted, they were either wasn't drafted in the first round or maybe it was very, very late first round, but like Hugo Gonzalez for the Boston Celtics.
Definitely thought about him. Definitely
I
thought
mean,
about him.
definitely a guy who at least had that be in the conversation as a
Yeah.
dude who really, really helped that team with their physicality and their rebounding and things like that on the offensive glass, the defensive glass. Because you have to think, man, that Celtics team, I mean, first of all, they're not supposed to be anywhere near where they are right now. But that Celtics team TV, we started out the year. One of the first things me and you critiqued about that team within the first 2 weeks was like, what's the paint presence gonna look like? And over the course of the year, Luca Garza, Hugo Gonzalez, Nemias Keita, they all kind of as a collective helped form an identity for them at that front court spot, and it really, really helped them. Like this rookie class, I don't think there's a insane amount of star power across the entire class, but I think there's a lot of consistency within the class that's going to stick around for a while.
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like this draft. I mean, kind of came as advertised. Like, there's just a lot of guys that can just like perform here like right away, and they actually are like already key members of like big time teams. I mean, you already talked about Hugo, you talked about CMB. These guys are gonna make a real impact, and I'm excited to see what these guys are able to do because the play. Like, I mean, we mentioned the playoffs are about to start in a week. These guys are gonna be like real people who you're like, okay, you're gonna need to like this is your first time in like high pressure moments. How are you gonna deliver? So it's gonna be excited to see what these guys look like under a 7 game series microscope. So I'm super excited for that. But Jay, before we move on to these other awards, time for us to name Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
Felt like a 2-man race for a while now. It really comes down to who you got here. I feel like VJ's our straight number 3.
Yeah,
Right.
pretty solidified.
Who do you got as your number 1?
So my number one, dude, I gotta be honest with you. I wrestled with this one, but I think that April made it interesting because the race to the finish had some crazy performances. Feels like a LeBron, Carmelo Anthony kind of thing as far as like
Thinking the exact same thing.
where we are. And TV, I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. If we can't do co-rookie of the years the way they should have done that season, I'm gonna go with the right guy this time. Because they went with Braun, and I think it's because the preconceived notion was that he was supposed to be rookie of the year the entire time. And although Melo was great that year, people couldn't jump off the high horse of being attached to Braun being that guy. Colin Knippel is that guy, bro. Colin Knippel is that guy. I'm sorry. He's that guy to me. In my personal opinion, this is a duplication of that exact same year where the guy with high productivity value fits perfectly on his team, doing it within a role that's very different from Cooper's. Don't get me wrong, definitely more of a third option, but equally as productive with less overall value to his team as far as what his usage rate is and things of that nature. And he's on a team that's firmly in a position to maybe still play in the playoffs this upcoming season. Cooper and those boys been eliminated for a little minute now. The Hornets are in contention to still be the 8th seed, still find themselves get maybe gobsmacked by Detroit in the first round. But the ascension, the emergence of Colin Knippel as a real tying piece within that team is what kind of felt like the missing piece for this team to finally like look like somebody that should be a force in the Eastern Conference. All props to Cooper Flag. No disrespect to Cooper Flag. But just like that year with LeBron versus Carmelo Anthony, it felt like one of those years where everybody's preconceived notion was Cooper's the guy, LeBron's the guy. And when you get to the end of the year, if the stats seem close, we're going to just go with the guy that we always thought was going to be Rookie of the Year from the beginning. When in reality, bro, I think just long-term trajectory, do I think Cooper Flag is going to be the better player? Yes. For this season, do I think that what Colin has done has been special for what has created a real different cultural vibe around the Charlotte Hornets, who look like a piss poor franchise, kind of even before this year, even with Brandon Miller, LaMelo, Miles, all those guys.
Yeah.
I think what Colin brought to the table and brings to the table this season and moving forward, it represents so much more. I think the Mavericks, you love what you saw from Cooper. You love that you were able to see him learn through that stage of playing point guard for whatever godforsaken reason. But I feel like the Mavericks still have so many questions about what they want to be around Cooper Flag. I feel like Colin established something this year with the Hornets that helped the Hornets figure out who they want to be.
This was so tough. I'm gonna tell you right now, for most of the season, I was like 70 Con, 30 Cooper. And bro, Cooper was making it close. Like, it was like the lines were kind of like almost intersecting near the end. I'm like, even like before I made this pick, because I made this pick last week, I was like, it's so close in the way. It is so close. I'm going with Con.
Okay. I thought I was gonna be by myself, so I think it's kind of lit that I'm not.
I was so close to going with Cooper Flag. Those insane performances near the end of the year really almost got me. And again, kind of like the LeBron thing back in 2003, 2004. We know that the superstar's there. We know that he's going to potentially be a top 10, like probably going to be a top 10, borderline top 5 player for years to come.
Yeah.
And we've seen the performances that could do that. We see the superstar ability for that. Sure. Colin Knippel being this historic rookie leading the league in 3-point shooting. Yes, his percentages dropped over the last month or so. I think he was like, I think a 44% 3-point shooter prior to the last like 10 or 15 games, and now he's kind of dropped to like 42. Over the last month, he's been like 37, 38% from three. But the historical value of it, the fact that that the Hornets have like made this huge turnaround in his play, like just connecting right away, and like turning around this team to potentially again a playoff team. When you mix in all of those factors and him already being one of the best players in the league at a specific skill, which is 3-point shooting, which is so rare for a rookie, by the way. We've seen some shooters come into the league and even at the NBA pace just can't figure it out. I know that firsthand. Freaking Grady Dick still hasn't figured out shooting, and he came into the league as a primary 3-point shooter. Khan comes in and is elite, one of the best in the league. You can say like top 5 in the league in terms of shooting the basketball. And it's not even just that he's just like a 3-point sniper, decent playmaking. This guy has like a nice in between game in terms of like of getting to the rim and just like making the right decisions. It's not a bad defender at all, too. If you watch Hornets games, he's actually not a horrible defender. It's not like they try to pick on him every time. But you mix all those factors in, and then you had this historical context of his 3-point shooting as well as leading the league in threes. And I know like there's certain years where you're like team record doesn't matter, this and that. I feel like that just kind of enhances already what a historic season that he's had already. And Cooper Flag, look, he probably will be the better player. He definitely has shown like that superstar potential. But I think just the totality of the Con Knippel season does it for me. Just absolutely like unless we think that he's gonna go he'll be the rookie of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if they go the other way. Again, I'm telling you, this feels like it's gonna be like a 5 to 6 vote difference. But I'll agree with you. I'll go with Con Knippel.
Yeah, this again, don't get me wrong, this was a very difficult one, and it was one of those where in April specifically, like Cooper was really pushing the envelope, dude. Like he definitely, I mean, those last couple like 50 balls, like the 40-50 balls he was putting up to kind of round things out. It was one of those where you're like, "Oh, crap. Like wait a minute. You about to put me in a weird spot here." But again, I've always had the long-lasting belief that going back to that 2003-2004 class, or 2003-2004 Rookie of the Year run, I genuinely believe that was a year that we don't do co-Rookie of the Year often, but that felt like one of the few years where they really missed an opportunity to do so. And I feel like if we're going to avoid that outcome again of the idea of being able to do that because it's not on the table and they can't do co-Rookie of the Year, which would also be pretty dope amongst former teammates, by the way, which kind of would be its own cool thing. But if we can't do that, then I want to lean with where my mind was or is. I don't say was. I mean, I wasn't making, basketball opinions in 2003. But my opinion around that Rookie of the Year class was that I felt like Melo kind of was robbed based off of the fact that there was a preconceived notion of who the quote-unquote best rookie was. And history would feel like it was written incorrectly if LeBron James wasn't, etched in the history books as Rookie of the Year for that class. But if you look at everything, it felt like Melo was supposed to be Rookie of the Year that year. And if I'm going based off of that logic with 2003, if I apply that logic in 2026, that means Khan's got it. And is that a perfect pick? No. But I think this is one of those where it should be co-Rookie of the Year because it's not that. I don't think it's just that square. I think both of their roles are so different, yet they both were so productive as rookies that I think it's almost unfair for somebody to lose. But if someone has to lose, I think Cooper in his situation, unfortunately, just kind of like dimmed his light just a little bit.
Yeah. You can go either way. I'm not mad of like where you go either way, but Jay and I have gone Con Knippel. Man, I think that's going to be the hardest reward out of all of this. So let's move on. And the next one we're gonna go with is 6th Man of the Year. Best guys coming off the bench. And Jay, I'm gonna throw it over to you. Who do you have winning 6th Man of the Year?
Yeah, so this one was kind of easy, and I hate to say that this was like Jay just went with the sports books thing, because, like, I hate doing that sometimes, but, like, I mean, it just was. Like, Keldon Johnson's not only, like, so much favored in, like, 6th Man of the Year, it's, like, kind of stupid ridiculous, like, it's not even close. But, I mean, Keldon has just really forged a strong space for himself this year. Off the bench is like a shot creator, that just does a little bit of everything. He just, it feels like, and maybe this is my bias towards this kind of archetype because you know how much I love me some Harrison Barnes, but it feels like Keldon Johnson just kind of like is slowly stepping into that role of just understanding that kind of archetypal fit for himself of the guy who just needs to come in, hit a couple mid-range buckets, be a little athletic finisher in the open floor here and there, bring some real offensive juice off the bench to this team. And other than that, just be a savvy defender, be a good roamer guy that can play perimeter passing lanes, or as the front man in front of a guy like Victor Wembanyama, who you got behind you that just lets you be as aggressive as you want to be on the perimeter as a defender. And I think he just has really embraced the role of just being a fit. For the longest time, it felt like Keldon Johnson was almost trying to insert himself into like star territory for this Spurs team. And it never felt like it really clicked. He had 1 year back in like 2022 where like he averaged like what I think like a little bit over 20 points a game. And it was just a year where you felt like, oh well, we need somebody to be a bucket, and Keldon Johnson seems to be a guy that's not afraid to go get some scoring
Yes,
done.
right,
But
yeah.
that's never really been the best version of what Keldon is meant to be in this league for him to play like winning basketball. And I feel like last year we got a glimpse of it, but I feel like this year he's really, really embodied that role again, almost kind of taking the Harrison Barnes baton of like, yo, I'm just going to fit as a guy that you can guarantee pencil in 13 to 15 points per game. I'm going to play solid defense. I'm going to be a guy who can project some energy in the open court. And I'm going to be a dude who just like, if you need something to get done, I'm going to get it done. I don't have to do too much. It's kind of like this is not the exact same because the archetype is not the same, but like how like the big judgment around Dylan Brooks was like he was trying too hard to monopolize an offense with Memphis, and it was like, dude, slow down on the shots. Just be open to be a 3-point shooter on floor spacer and be the pest defender that we know you are. And when he does that, we see how he elevates teams. When he's not trying to take 18, 19 shots a game, granted, he kind of had to do it for Phoenix this year, but still, when he's not that guy, we see the best out of the teams that he plays on because he's more of the glue that fits and helps that team coexist properly. Keldon did a lot of that this year, and I think he did it the best version he ever has this season.
I 100% agree with you here. For me, it was between him and Jaime, and ultimately I did go with Keldon Johnson. And I basically, the way I like to put it, and I think you kind of like did it in a bit of more of a roundabout way, but Keldon just fits so nicely in the flow of the San Antonio Spurs offense. He doesn't demand the ball. He kind of is just in the right spaces. He knows where his spots are. He doesn't hold on to the ball too much. Maybe if they need to, he can create a shot every once in a while. But he just knows how to fit into the system and how to really maximize the amount of the amount he's on the floor in those limited minutes. Because remember, there was like discussion before the season, like, okay, what is this forward pairing going to look like? Devin Vassell, him, Harrison Barnes. Who's going to be the odd man out? I feel like Keldon Johnson, and I know people like to say, oh, it's just Harrison Barnes, like you mentioned a while ago. But Harrison Barnes is a freaking 13, 14-year NBA pro.
Yeah.
He's been in here for a hot minute.
Respect
and he knew
him.
for the most of his career, he knew that he wasn't the shot creating guy. He was the release valve. He was the guy that had to get fed in order to like in his spots in order to hit his shots. And that's what Keldon Johnson has like learned to be like the best version of himself on the team. Funnily enough, he is playing beside Harrison Barnes, so it's kind of like the best perfect like archetype next to it. But he's learned how to do it, and plus he's a solid defender. He doesn't take anything away from the defense. But it's just like how nice he gets his like shots like in the flow of the offense is what I have here and it's like you don't like change the offense. You don't have to change anything when Keldon Johnson's on the floor. He gets his because he's just such a good fit in this offense. And him scoring 13 points a game, his most efficient season since his rookie year, and then he's starting to slowly climb back up in his 3-point shooting. I think Keldon Johnson, shout out to Jaime Hawkins, who's been great for the Heat, who I had in contention. Same thing with THJ. Same thing with Naz Reid. But I think Keldon Johnson and the like really defining what it means to be a 6-man like on this offense and like being like that spark plug that doesn't take anything away from the San Antonio Spurs. I think he deserves the award.
Yeah, I think that again, like I said beforehand, if I'm being open and honest, this was one of those where the sports books just made it way too obvious. I don't even know. When I was kind of looking through, I didn't even have a great case for some of the other guys in the conversation for it. I don't know if you did.
I had one for
Um,
Jaime. I was like really considering, like just him, like especially like when you look at the early parts of the year. My thing with him is that the efficiency is just not really there. I mean,
yeah, I
55%
think that's the
true
thing too.
shooting.
Yeah,
Like I think 55, 56% true shooting, and a lot of his stuff. And I mean, this comes with like the free flowing Miami Heat offense, right? Where it's kind of like you kind of just get shots like where you find fit. It's not like they have like these set plays that they do like very often. Still a lot of free flowing offense, and he benefited from that a lot. But the percentages not as good. If it was like early season Jaime, I would have maybe like give him more of a shout. But I think Keldon Johnson, for the totality of the year, was still the clear winner here.
yeah, totally agree with you. This was one of those that I felt like not as like easy as like rookie of the year was for me as far as like where my stance was coming into today's episode, but one of those that was like kind of blatantly there, and it was kind of a question of like, okay, does anybody else have a crazy, pitch? And I couldn't find one, which kind of
Shout
fully
out to HJ
solidified my
though.
thought.
This man has been a freaking efficient like guy off the bench for the Denver Nuggets. He's kind of your prototypical just like get out there and shoot. That's kind of what he does, but he's been doing it like very efficiently for them. One of the best people like 3-point bench shooters in the league. But yeah, I think Keldon is the clear winner over here. Jay, you want to get rid of some of the easy ones right away? Defensive Player of the Year.
Wimby.
Wemby, Defensive Player of the Year. Look, if he didn't make 65 games, different story. But we said this even last year. If he makes that 65 game threshold, if he's able to do it, they're gonna make a new stat because of Wemby at some point because of how dominant he's been on the defensive end. Probably like something to do with him scaring off different shots. There's probably gonna be a stat made about that in the next couple of years. Be on the lookout. But
Yeah.
just him being able to deter shots and people just like seeing his presence in the paint and changing their entire offense based around that because they know not only like does it take just like one like attempt to kind of get by him and it like takes like a extra pass. You have to get ready for the second jump. You have to get ready for his like insane athletic ability to like to cover multiple spots in the paint in that restricted area. There's just his impact is there's nothing like that probably in NBA history and definitely not here in the NBA today.
Yeah, I mean, Wimby's in one of those spots where I just feel like I seen this in NBA 2K26. It's one of those where like, look, bro, like if he plays enough games, it's his.
Yeah.
It's one of those. It
No, I
really
know I
is.
feel you. And the stats
Yeah,
back it up too. Bro has like the craziest on and off defensive like stats in the league.
yeah,
They're like the 19th or 18th ranked defense when he's off the court, and they're like number one, number two when he's on the court. Like it's just like it's staggering, like how much you could see the impact. Not even just in the stats perspective, just like when watching San Antonio Spurs games. Shout out to Chet Holmgren, who I had probably he's gonna be runner up or number three. Shout out to Scotty Barnes, who I've seen maybe get like the kind of the roamer type of one where it's like he can defend like every single position. Shout out to him for at least making it close. Not even close, but at least making it some sort of like, discussion there. But if Wemby's healthy, like you mentioned, he's gonna win it.
yeah. I totally agree with you. It's one of those where like I feel like this year it was a gimme. Last year we had to kind of at least think it over because of the games played thing. This year we kind of got what we expected last season, which is like if he's healthy, it's his.
I mean, if he didn't have that blood clot like at the end of last year, he probably would have won it over Emob.
Yep.
He probably would have won it over Emob. So
Yep.
yeah, shout out to Wemby. Shout out to Chet. I mean, we talked about it last week. I mean, that's why I'm not trying to go like too deep into this because we talked about the impact of Chet. We talked about the impact of Scotty and how important they are to their teams. But it's just
Yeah.
like such a wide, even like just like the insane like impact that Wemby has on his team is just absolutely insane, and that's why I think he's gonna be the clear away defensive player of the year. Jay, you want to hit him with one of the hit your free throw awards? Let's try to hit one of them today.
Yeah, I mean, I got some pretty interesting answers. I don't think they're anything super polarizing, but like I
Yep.
think the answers for some of the ones that we did come up with are pretty dope.
So the first one we're gonna do, we'll probably go with this other one a bit later, but the first one, the hit your free throws hit your free throws award, is comeback of the year. This could be up to our interpretation. Could be a player who bounced back after last season's injury, last season's struggles, someone who maybe had a slow start to this year, or anything like that. And again, it could be a team or a player. Jay, who do you have as the comeback of the year?
So the comeback player of the year for me, I went with LaMelo Ball. I mean,
Love that. Really do love that.
72 games this year, entertained coming off the bench in a few games here and there, and actually was pretty, successful in terms of bringing something different in a couple of those lineups as well. TV, the last 2 seasons, LaMelo combined to play 69 games from 2023 to the end of the 2025 season. This season he played 72. He played more this year than he played the last 2 years combined.
Also, shout out #2 in the league in 3-pointers made, right behind Colin Knippel, but he's had a fantastic year for sure.
Yeah, first duo to do it since Steph and Clay a few
Yes,
seasons ago
yes,
too, right? So
yeah.
very interesting company to be in. And more importantly, I know a lot of people are going to look at the stats and be like, LaMelo, this is your worst season since your second year in the league from a statistical standpoint. Like, how could he be comeback player of the year? These things like that. Dude, the biggest thing for me is that LaMelo finally looked like he knew how to play winning basketball. Right? The biggest question about LaMelo Ball since being drafted, quite frankly, and I think one of the biggest things that costed him from being drafted by Golden State all those years ago was the fact that his erratic play style made you wonder whether or not he could fit in a system. You always wondered, did LaMelo Ball have to be the system in order for a LaMelo Ball led team to be successful? And we found out this year, no. The answer is no. LaMelo Ball has the wherewithal, has the upside, has the IQ to be a guy that when he's around legitimate talent, and we saw spurts of this last year. TV, how much did we rave about? Like, oh, the Charlotte Hornets get Seth Curry and freaking Grant Williams and a handful of guys that's like, oh, these guys know how to play basketball. And all of a sudden, Charlotte looks like an actual basketball team for the first time in Lord knows how long. Now you get Conker Nipple. You get, I wouldn't say a healthier version of Brandon Miller because he kind of had a struggle of a season this year as well as far as staying on the floor. But it was still did a pretty good job of staying on the floor compared to last season, I guess I should say. And here they are, right? Here they are. Granted, no further along than like the best versions of LaMelo Ball teams have been in the past. Still in the play-in tournament, still trying to find a way to get themselves into the playoffs and that final 8. But like you believe in the thought process. Like the version of this, the entire season of this Charlotte Hornets team to me, not bar for bar because I don't see them taking this kind of insane leap, but this season for the Charlotte Hornets to me felt like those final 7 games of the Phoenix Suns in the bubble. You remember that? Where it was like the team was like, you saw them go back into the bubble. You're like, nah, they're not really going to be on nothing. And they went out there and took every game seriously. And then a lot of people kind of started jumping on that train of like, okay, wait a minute. Next season, they didn't make the playoffs that year. But a lot of people came out of the bubble saying like, yo, Phoenix might, they weren't a playoff team. But they might be a team that like we might have to like really pay attention to in the Western Conference next season. And like Charlotte, it felt like this whole season was like, okay, they weren't a playoff team. Because I really do worry about the idea of them making the playoffs. Now, they're in a really good position. I don't love what Miami has been this season. And even if, even if they beat Miami, let's say they beat Miami in that first matchup and they still have to play like a Philly, that's a really favorable situation for them given the fact that Joel Embiid's not healthy. So like they could still, sneak in. But let's say they miss the playoffs. You still
Yeah.
walk away from this season arguably saying Charlotte fans should be the most excited about next season compared to any other off season they've ever went into in the LaMelo Ball era. Like this should be the most exciting version of Charlotte Hornets fandom that we have in recent memory because it feels like a year where we actually learned something about an established core for this team. It feels like every single season with Charlotte we're like, yo, who are the blue chip guys? Where are the other dudes that are of actual talent next to LaMelo? We thought it
Yeah.
was Mark Williams, but the man couldn't stay healthy, right? We thought that it was Miles Bridges, and although he can be a consistent 20-point per game scorer, he's not a floor raiser. He's just a very consistent player. He's your Harrison Barnes, Tobias Harris type, a good fit, but not somebody that like raises your floor. So who's the blue chip guys that you can build a real core around? Well, you got Khan, you got Brandon Miller. I like what Ryan Kalkbrenner brings to the table. Like you look at their roster, Musa Diabate really carved out a role for himself this season. And with LaMelo Ball as part of that face, they feel like they have a real core now. So I'm gonna give him a lot of credit for finally fitting the mold of a system as opposed to still being this kind of. My friend always makes the joke that says that like LaMelo Ball plays like he's on crack. Is like the joke that he always makes. Well, this year it felt like he was under as much control as we've ever seen him.
Yes, but he still got the LaMelo Ball charm where sometimes you do question those abilities sometimes, but I know
True.
exactly what you mean, man. Like, we've been like, I think for a lot of, especially the early parts of the season, we were kind of comparing him and John Moran as those guys. It's like, look, we know when they're playing, they're elite point guards, but is it conducive of winning? And can they stay on the court? Because clearly over the last few years, these guys just could not stay on the court.
Yeah.
LaMelo, for the first time in a while, has been able to stay on the court and has led one of the most effective starting lineups since the turn of the new year, which
Mm-hmm.
is absolutely insane with him, Con, and Brandon Miller. And when he's on the court, I mean, like, once you have those guys that can be released valves, guys that can play off of him, and they play in that, like, high pace, outshoot you type of style, which the Hornets have been doing, he has, like, been very effective in that role. So shout out to Melo Ball for actually, like, having that comeback, being able to stay healthy this year, and hopefully for the first time in his career, make the playoffs. Because even though they do have to win 2 playing games to get there, I think a lot of NBA fans want to see this team in there. They want
Yeah.
to see them in it, just so just as like a fun team to watch in the playoffs. And who knows, these guys might like surprise some people.
And I mean, also, TV, quite frankly, like compared to the other teams in the conversation, I would love to see Charlotte in the playoffs. Like, if it's between them, Miami, and Philly, give me Charlotte. Give me Charlotte, dude.
Yeah, I would love to see him in the playoffs. So shout out to Melo Ball again for making it to for a comeback of the year for you. For myself, I kind of went with a team aspect. Shout out to the whole Clippers, man. Shout out to the whole Clippers.
Okay,
They,
that's
they are
funny that
my
you say that.
comeback of
We're
the
going to talk
year.
about them in a little bit.
Yeah, no, shout out to them. I was gonna do just Kawhi if I was gonna do just a player aspect because kind of like Melo, the games played. We thought that he would never be able to, especially at this age and his reoccurring injuries, to be eligible for any of these, All NBA awards and stuff like that. But man, he's come in, become a borderline All NBA. Oh, sorry, an All NBA dude, and he has this team who started off 6-21. People are going to keep saying this from now until they're eliminated from the play-in or the playoffs. But 6-21 to move into 42 and 40. Unfortunately, that they unfortunately that they have to win 2 playoff games, playing games just to get into the playoffs. But
Mhm.
he's been absolutely incredible. Still looks like what many people thought, maybe he could do it in stretches as a top 5, top 10 player in the league. He's done this for basically all of the season, which is something that we just did not see coming. And then again, just the whole comeback of the year award, when you include the Clippers, them having to remodel their whole team, people thinking that they were going to somehow, move their way up and then go down because of the trade deadline. They were still able to keep on that up trajectory, and they gave themselves a chance to go into the playoffs. So, in terms of the overall situation, I'm going to say the Clippers. But if I had to give it to a player, I would give it to Kawhi Leonard too. But I kind of did those kind of in tandem, and if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's funny that you bring them up because they are actually the team that I had for the other award that we set up for this as well for kind of a very similar reason here. Um, so I mean, when it comes to what the Clippers have been able to do this year, again, TV, you got to encapsulate the whole story, dog. This was a team that at the beginning of the year, at 6-21, they were making graphics that was like, yo, what if the Clippers give OKC AJ DeBonsa? Do you remember this? We had a
Exactly.
conversation about this on the
Exactly.
podcast for a handful of different weeks where we were talking about the idea of like, yo, are the Clippers the biggest salesman in all of NBA history? Did they really just position themselves to give the Oklahoma City Thunder yet another piece to allow them to run the Western Conference, to run the NBA for the next 5, 10 years plus, because they could potentially hand them the number 1 overall pick or a number 3 pick in this upcoming draft class, one of the deepest draft classes in the last couple of years. And
Yeah.
the Clippers, despite everything that happened this season, right? You trade James Harden, you trade a Vika Zubac. You had aspirations, no joke intended, or actually jokes intended, it seems. Given the fact that Kawhi Leonard got himself caught up, and that could have been its own debacle, where maybe he ended up having to be relieved from the team and potentially have his whole contract, completely voided for this team. Where there was a chance where, if you remember, there was a chance where Kawhi Leonard could have just automatically became like a free agent midway through the season because of the aspiration situation that took place, where teams like New York, Golden State, Los Angeles, the Lakers, excuse me, all were coming up as teams that like could possibly make a run at Kawhi Leonard right there at the middle of the season. And despite everything that happened this year, here they are right now in a situation where like, yo, they're playing for a playoff spot.
No, 100%. It's in terms of like being like all of the, if you're talking about like a freaking roller coaster ride, this is like the freaking definition of it. Uh, the Cole Chris Paul thing too, as well. Like, there's just like so many different like aspects of this season that you just never knew like where this Clippers team was gonna end up. The fact that they even got to this position is absolutely crazy. I don't know how if they're even gonna make it out to play in. The freaking size difference is gonna be an issue for sure. But we're definitely gonna talk about that in the TikToks when we do our play in previews. But just overall comebacks, you have him. Hopefully, they have a decent, like at least a decent run in the playoffs. So maybe you can even like extend this to like a Darius Garland and stuff like that, who's actually been incredible ever since he's joined the Clippers. But
Mm.
yeah, this whole team has been like just on a comeback throughout this entire year. So shout out to them for getting this award, at least from on my behalf. Let's go on to the other. Let's continue more with some of these other awards. And Jay, we're gonna go to this one should be pretty fun. Coach of the year. Different ways you can go about this. I
Yeah.
want to hear where you go because I think there are three like worthy winners, and I wouldn't mind if you go with any of these three. Who do you have winning Coach of the Year?
Yeah, so this is one of those where I tailored my decision around coach of the year strictly around what were your expectations starting off the season.
Yeah,
And that, I'm going to be honest with you, made it really interesting because I mean, shoot, just the Charlotte Hornets that we're talking about right now. I mean, a much scrappier team than you could have anticipated before the year started. A lot of people maybe had high hopes for them, especially given how many bites at the apple they had in this past draft class. Hopefully you get a healthy LaMelo. You build off of the fact that you have Brandon Miller, and then you add in Con Knipple as a top 5 pick, and you're like, wait a minute, this could be a pretty solid team. So I looked at that spot, but the guy that embodied the overall award for me using the logic of like what were you expected to do before the season started brings me to Boston Celtics and Joe Mazzulla. Like, and it's funny, Jaylen Brown has been on a little bit of a victory lap tour the last couple of days, kind of like talking about people who counted them out before the season started, saying that they were going to be, this play-in team and, they were going to fall off without Jason Tatum. And don't get me wrong, there was precedent for that. I mean, look at the Milwaukee Bucks without Damian Lillard. Granted, he went down with the ACL injury and got traded, but like they were going to be without him regardless if they didn't trade him because of the ACL injury, right? Look at how far from grace Milwaukee fell off without him. Look at the Tyrese Halliburton situation with
right.
Indiana, right? There's precedent this season to say, yo, if you lose your arguably your best player, you're going to take quite a tumble, right? And or one of your top 2 players, whatever the case is, if we're talking about like a Damian Lillard, like there's a precedent set for this season where it's like, yo, that could be a coffin call for you. And instead, not only was Boston not completely out of the water as far as like being a legitimate like playoff contender, TV, they're top 2 in the East. I mean, they're top 2 in the East. Jaylen Brown, they oh, we don't have Jason Tatum, who's usually a top 5 MVP candidate for us. Oh yeah, we'll just make Jaylen Brown a top 5 MVP candidate this year and still have similar results. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where like they say the work works, right? And this is one of
Yeah,
those things where like the system for Boston just clearly says if you got a star wing, you got 3-point shooting, and you got dudes willing to play defense and rebound, we're gonna win basketball games.
yeah,
And it played out exactly that way for the Boston Celtics, and they reaped the benefits of it. And then they got blessed because 2 months before the regular season ended, they got their star guy back. just in time for them to arguably be the favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference now.
Insane. Absolutely insane. Shout out to some of the other candidates. Shout out to JB Bickerstaff because the people thought the Pistons were going to be good. Number one, the East is good. I don't think people thought they were going to see that come in. Shout out to freaking Mitch Johnson. People knew that the Spurs were going to take a jump this year. Did they think they were going to be second in the West, sort of good? Probably not. But just like you, I am giving it to Joe Mazzulla. And more than anything now, forget that Drew Holiday is no longer in the picture. Forget that Al Horford's no longer in the picture. No Kristaps Porzingis. So many of the players from that championship team just a couple years ago. And it doesn't freaking matter. Because they can use the Hugo Gonzalez's. They can freaking make Baylor Shireman into a guy. Nemes Keita has become a borderline all-defensive player this year
Right.
for them. Jaylen Brown, of course, all-NBA. The system is the system. And whatever Joe Mazzulla has gone for these guys, like running through a wall for him, is clearly working. And the fact that they were number 2 in the East. And like you mentioned, out of all of these teams here, a lot of these East teams have a lot of flaws in their roster. And somehow, some way, we're going to look at the Celtics, even though the talent isn't as there as it was for previous years. But you look at Joe Mazzulla, you look at that system, and you say, I trust that they can get it done. Every single time. The fact that we have these conversations, as much as you want to say, yeah, Jaylen Brown is having a career year, yes, you can say that Jason Tatum's back. This Coach Joe Mazzulla system is just clearly working for this team. And when that's the case, and then you lose like so much of your championship core just this past offseason, and you're still performing at this level with the amount of roster turnover, you gotta win the award. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You gotta win it. So
No,
Joe
totally
Mazzulla,
agree.
man, shout out to him. I think I remember telling you that the Celtics were a Jaylen Brown or a Derek White injury from from this team completely exploding. None of those guys really got injured, and somehow instead of like being just an over 41 team, they became easily an over 51 team. It's pretty incredible to see, but now like people are kind of seeing, okay, yeah, Joe Mazzulla is just that dude, and if you want to say he's the best coach in the league, I can't even blame you, man. I just can't blame you.
Yeah, this is one of those where, again, if I'm going with my preconceived notions of like, again, just overall what my view of like what a coach's upside brings to the table, right? Because that's what we're truly saying is, where does the coaching change the dynamic of a team? You know a team's talented, right? You
Yeah,
can see a team and say on paper they're talented. But what's the thing from the coaching perspective that takes them from talented to dangerous? And I think this team, even without Jason Tatum, right? Derek White, one of the best shot blocking guards in NBA history now established this season, right? Big time 3-point shooter still, big time as a rim protecting guard, of course, high upside as a perimeter defender. Peyton Pritchard, always going to be a guy that's in the conversation as like a six man of the year kind of candidate with the way that he's able to put the ball in the basket. Neemias Keita, Hugo Gonzalez, guys who kind of like just kind of grew out of nowhere in front of our very eyes as guys who like TV before this season, we didn't know if these guys were really true rotation players. Let's be honest. Speaking about
yeah,
Neemias Keita more particularly, a guy that we've seen not really have the greatest, role carved out for him in the past. And instead, Joe Mazzulla, lemonade out of lemons this season, and then some, made a whole lemonade stand. And now, I mean, they got rewarded for keeping at it. They could have mailed it in. They could have went a step further. Remember, there were talks before the season started of maybe just mailing it in as far as maybe trading Jaylen Brown to go get a different player they could pair with Jason Tatum for when he comes back
they,
next
they
season.
like you mentioned, they could have easily went the Pacers route and treated this as a gap year. They
Yeah.
easily could have went this route, but no, they're like we could in this East, so we still have a chance. We still have a
Yeah.
chance.
Not only did they take what was said and use it as fuel, but they doubled down, outbeat the spot, and got rewarded in a way where now, again, Detroit, a team that has a little bit of postseason experience, but nothing compared to what Boston has. Atlanta, very scary team, still very youthful, have question marks about how their three-point shooting is going to translate into the postseason because they're not a very good three-point shooting team going up against a Boston team that literally shoots the lights out of the building, right? I look at teams like Orlando that haven't been able to prove themselves in the second half of games. I look at teams like Cleveland that's going to have to prove it to me before I believe it. Because you have playoff chokers like a James Harden. Shoot, to a lesser degree, even the Donovan Mitchell, who I think has played well enough to be considered a playoff superhero, but still finds himself never being able to get past the second round. Right? Like you have questions about the rest of the East, where even though this team hasn't been whole all year, you still look at Boston and you're like, they should be the favorites. They should be the favorites to come out of the East. And we were not. We were nowhere close to that before the season started.
Testament to Joe Mazzulla. And people had those discussions where it's like, is this Jason Tatum's team? Is this Jalen Brown's team? It feels like this year it's like, man, Joe Mazzulla just has like whatever this team needs. And bro, that game against Orlando yesterday, man, the freaking third stringers, the freaking main red claws of the freaking Boston Celtics denying playoff entry for the Orlando Magic. That kind of like I didn't say that won it for me, obviously, because I had this like kind of set up for the last week. But that just like made me smile, made me grin, and just be like, yeah, Joe Mazzulla just does not know how to tank, does he? He just doesn't know what that word is. So shout out to him. I think we both have him as our coach of the year.
Yeah.
Jay, most improved. This always feels like a contentious award every year, depending how you go with it. But who do you have winning most improved player?
I have been waiting for this day for so long, and I'm so glad we're here because I finally get the chance to give some love to my guy, Nikhil Alexander Walker. TV, I've been on this train for 2 years now. You know this as somebody
Yeah.
who's been on the other side of this podcast, how much I've brought up Nikhil Alexander Walker, once upon a time, part of the three-headed monster on that perimeter defensively next to Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels. On this team with the Atlanta Hawks, next to Dyson Daniels, next to Jalen Johnson, right? He's been a guy. You had question marks. There were people who had question marks about what he could do with an increased offensive role. A lot of people wondered about what he could do as a player that maybe had the ball in his hands a little bit more often. Nikhil Alexander Walker, you understand that Trae Young, as an all-star, was easily the best three-point shooter in Atlanta Hawks history, and in one season, Nikhil Alexander Walker surpassed him. In one season.
Yeah. On almost 40% from three as well. Shout out to dude.
Nikhil Alexander Walker's emergence, I will die on this hill that Nikhil Alexander Walker's emergence was the final nail in the coffin that made the Hawks feel comfortable moving off of Trae Young. I believe that Nikhil Alexander, I know they had their trepidations. I knew they were a little bit worried. I know that they were wondering about whether or not they wanted to give him a contract extension. There were many things looming around the Trae Young situation that made it seem like it was inevitable that he would be moved in some juncture. But I think that Nikhil Alexander Walker emerging into the player that my boy emerged into this season, and I saw it way back when at Virginia Tech. You can actually look it up. I wrote an article about this years ago in that draft class that he was one of my favorite prospects from that class because he had the offensive juice. And when he came into the league, despite being a guy that was viewed as an offensive bucket getter out of college, he forged a career for himself as a defensive-minded player to get himself on the floor. But this year, he had to turn back the clock a little bit. TV, he jumped from 9.4 points per game last season to 20.8 points per game. Again, you said shot 40% from beyond the arc, shot 38% last year. He doubled his attempts per game this year from 4.5 to 8, and the efficiency went up in an expanded usage role. He took double the shots this year. Last year, 7.5. This season, 15.3. Shot 43.8% last year, 45.9% this year. A lot of people say, oh, most improved players shouldn't go to a guy who simply went from one team where he had a lesser role to a new team where maybe there's some but he gets a higher role. Well, guess what? Atlanta was a legit playoff team at the end of this season. Atlanta's part of the top six. Yeah, they didn't look like it in the beginning of the year, and yeah, they had to go on a crazy win streak to put themselves back in contention. But guess what? They're part of the top 6. They're not playing in the play-in tournament. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has a ton to do with that. I'm so glad that my dog got the runway to be able to show that he can be a lead point guard in this league. And this season, he put the whole package together. Buckets, three-point shooting. By the way, my boy averaged just over a steal a game for this team. He put the whole package together. And I mean, you're never going to give him all-star credence because I just don't think he's that caliber of player right now. But this is a dude who can be a high upside starter, and he's going to be a guy that, like, if we do position rankings, he has an argument right there as a top 10 player at that point guard position. Maybe it's Glaze, but I'm just glad to see my dog finally getting his credence. I don't know if he's runaway MIP, but I think he's a guy that sure as hell should be, like, firmly in your top 2.
Shout out to some of these other guys. I'll tell you first my runner up. It was going to be Ryan Rollins. Shout out to Ryan Rollins. He was going to be my runner up. But the band from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is my winner for most improved, man. He is. It's not just even the expanded role, because people get expanded roles, but their efficiency goes down. They get more points, but it just doesn't fit into well to the scheme. It kind of just looks off. This guy is feeding off of Jalen Johnson perfectly. This guy is a spot-up shooter. This guy has been able to, again, like you mentioned earlier, most threes in a season in Hawks history. And he still has a defensive acumen on what, after this year, is looking like a pretty damn good contract that the Hawks gave him this past offseason. He's really, taken over that secondary scoring role. And him and CJ McCollum just being in that backcourt, not again being just awesome off-ball guys to Jalen Johnson. You don't want to take the ball out of Jalen Johnson's hands. He is the main creator on this team. And it feels like the addition of CJ McCollum and Nickeil Alexander-Walker throughout this entire year has just been the perfect off-ball perimeter guys for him. There's a reason why this Hawks team, even before the Trae Young trade, just looked better with him off the court and all that, because it gave out Nickeil the chance to start. And he and Jalen Johnson just have this strong connection where, yes, even though he's considered the point guard on this roster, Jalen Johnson is the one handling the ball, and everyone else is just kind of playing off of him. He's been able to do that at at a pretty efficient level. Still a pretty good defender, and just that that offensive credence that he's been and ability that he's been kind of granted with this season. He has been able to take it by the horns and just go all the way with it. So shout out to Nickeil. I have him winning as well. His true shooting percentage as well for a freaking guard being 61% is really damn good. Shout out to him. But he's not just one of the best bench players in the league, your ideal backup shooting guard. This guy could be a pretty damn good starter. I'm excited to see how hopefully the toe injury is not too bad, but I'm excited to see how he does in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm so happy for Nickeil. Maybe there's some glaze there. Don't get me wrong. The point guard position is pretty deep. I realize in the midst of it, fringe top 10 at the spot might be a little aggressive, but he's a guy that I think, especially, I mean, once we get to 15, I think you're at the point where I don't think you can leave Nickeil out. Top 10 is probably glazing, but I think he's a top 15 guy at the position going into next season. Show that he can do it on both sides of the floor. Show that he can be a guy that can do it in a million different ways now. We've seen it with Minnesota. We even saw to a lesser degree in Utah where he was able to fit. New Orleans, he was kind of having to carve out a role for himself. We've seen the growth of Nickeil amount to now this season. What not only do I feel was a true breakout, but I feel really the best version of what Nickeil Alexander-Walker can be, to the point that I think this is something that now, with Atlanta embracing him, he has the chance to be a fringe 18 to 20 point per game scorer, 37 to 40% 3-point shooter. I think this is the version of Nickeil that's always been there, just never had the runway to be this guy when you play on some of these other teams that he's been on, next to a Zion Williamson, right? Next to Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards. He couldn't be this kind of guy. But next to Jalen Johnson, like you mentioned beforehand, the synergy allows him to be this kind of player. And you have guys like a Jonathan Kuminga on the team this season, Dyson Daniels. You have a Onyeka Okongwu on the back end. and this team has just really been able to embrace him as a starting point guard. And I think the differences that he brings, number one, I think the intensity on defense alone was such a stylistic change from someone like Trey Young that it kind of brought the rest of the team together in a way. His play style embraced at that point guard position, I think helped really turn this team around.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's. I'm super glad that he's like getting his flowers. Shout out to Shay too, who I think was asked this the other day. He's like, yeah, no, if he doesn't win it, it's a freaking travesty. Of course, so they're cousins and all that, but I'm super glad he's getting his flowers. I will say, shout out to Jalen Duren as well for maybe potentially doing this. Like, he got the prototypical, very good starter to potential All NBA nod, like sort of jump, which some people might attribute that more, which I could definitely understand. But I think that Nickel, and I feel like in terms of the spirit of the award too, this is like the type of winners I like to have. So Nickel being the winner for most improved definitely is the one for us. I believe, yeah, we got two more awards left. Before we get into MVP, Jay, we're gonna head us with the second Hit Your Free Throws award, which is Storyline of the Year. This is the one like where we basically are gonna look at all of the storylines and see like, okay, this NBA season has been crazy. What's a storyline that's gonna? It's again, you're either your favorite or the one that's gonna stand out to you at the end of the year the most. Jay, who do you have as winning storyline of the year for the Hit Your Free Throws podcast?
Yeah, so I kind of hinted to it earlier in passing when you brought it up, the idea of like the Los Angeles Clippers. And I mean, TV, it'll just stick in my head for the entirety of until they get eliminated. You just have to remember Tyronn Lue at one point before this, like, when things were really out of hand, they were 6-21, and he's just like, we just got to go 35-20. You know what I mean? Or whatever the case may be, and they go 35-17 the rest of the way. And it's like, yo, you called your shot. You called your shot. Everybody else in the league was panicking. We thought that everything was falling apart for this Clippers team, and it seemed like it was only getting worse. The James Harden trade, the Ivica Zubac trade. It felt like everything was starting to kind of crumble. And Tyronn Lue kind of hits everybody with the chill, chill. We know the goal. We know what we have to hit in front of us, and we're going to just keep trudging one game at a time. It's an 82-game regular season for a reason. And these guys, I mean, they were able to get the most out of Derrick Jones Jr. on his time on the floor. I think that this team was able to really establish and identify like a defensive identity with guys like Dunn on the team, kind of really helping to like instill somewhat of an identity overall to this team as far as like just being aggressive, not being scared to really build out their their play style around making games close. I think was another thing. Like Kawhi Leonard this year. I mean, we're not doing clutch player of the year or anything like that, but like Kawhi Leonard in close games was just like
Yes,
absolute money this season as well, right?
he's been like that.
So
He's always like that, bro.
yeah, so I think that overall, I mean, this was a year. I mean, TV, everything could have went to hell. I mean, Bradley, we forget about Bradley Beal, TV.
Yes, yeah,
What
yeah, yeah.
happened this year, TV? Bradley Beal was this season, right? You trade James Harden. The Bradley Beal thing falls through. You move off of Ivica Zubac. You get back Benedict Mathurin, who's supposed to be, playing for a contract. You get back Darius Garland. You're worried about, like, okay, but what Darius Garland are we going to get, knowing that he tends to deal with injuries, and they traded for him while he was dealing with a nagging injury, right? You had questions about, was Kawhi Leonard going to get traded to the Miami Heat at the buzzer, and he ended up not getting moved. Like, there was so many questions, so many reasons. I mean, in true honesty, people doubted the LA Clippers more after 6-21 than anybody doubted the Boston Celtics before the season started. Like, out of the two things, could we have pictured the Clippers coming back and being a playoff team after 6-21, or could we have pictured the Boston Celtics as a playoff team after losing Jason Tatum? I would have told you that in the Eastern Conference, I'll take the Boston Celtics still being a playoff team over the Clippers somehow fighting back to be a playoff team after 6-21. And somehow, ironically, both teams are in a situation right now where they're going to be in the playoffs or have a chance to be in the playoffs if you're the Clippers. And that just still feels surreal to me.
It's it's absolutely incredible the way they're able to turn things around. I mean, I'd never seen some like an NBA community come together in so much fear that the OKC Thunder were going to get a top 3 pick because of the Clippers' early season struggles. And like you mentioned, it was the Bradley Beal stuff. It was the 6-21. It was the sending home of Chris Paul. It literally felt like the sky was falling.
Dude,
The
I didn't
sky,
even mention the Chris Paul thing. See, there you go. Perfect that thing to add
it's,
in, dude.
it,
What the heck?
the sky was falling by the time December came around. It was absolutely insane. And the fact that we got there, and literally all Ty Lue said after that 16-21 starts, like, all we have to go is, 35-20 to the rest of the way, and I think we'll be fine. They went 20, 35-20, and they got themselves into a mix where they actually have a chance at the playoffs. And again, like you mentioned, came with all of this roster turnover. The fact that they traded some of their most reliable guys of the last couple of years, and they're still able to do this. I've never seen just like such a turnaround. And people want to point out, last year that the Pacers, started off under 500 going into January and became one of the best teams in terms of net rating throughout the rest of the way. At no point of last season were the Pacers as down as bad as this Clippers team. At no point. So in terms of storyline of the year, I 100% get it. Just that whole Clippers season has been a freaking movie, and I hope that there's some sort of documentary or some sort of podcast in the future where we kind of see the behind the scenes of all this, because this is absolutely crazy. It's along with the aspiration stuff as well. Like, this Clippers season is an absolute movie. I just honestly, let's see it continue going. Let's see if they can make it to the playoffs. Should be pretty fun.
Yeah.
My storyline of the year, though, I'm gonna call this NBA ethicality. This is gonna be the storyline of the year, because
Okay.
NBA ethicality really is a blanket term for so many things that have been talked about this year. The 65 game rule, being able to rest players ethically, or is it is it bad to kind of force your players to play into the 65 games? Tanking. This is the most teams that with a 33% 33% or less win record. We've seen like egregious tanking ever since February. The resting, the changes they tried to make in the All-Star game, all that stuff. NBA ethicality has been such a big topic in this. Even when you look at the MVP race, the way that how people were, earlier on in the season, Jaylen Brown trying to promote himself for MVP, Wemby later on in the season doing the same. People are like, that's not how you do it. This is not how you do this. This is not how you do that. This has been such a common debate point, a common, topic just surrounding the NBA this year in so many aspects of the game, that people are trying to just think of just NBA ethics in general. Like, are they tanking ethically? Are they them shutting down their players? This is non-ethical basketball. Them resting, them having the 65 game rule. Like, how are you supposed to do this to these players who are not supposed to be making awards? This is not the way it's supposed to be. This whole NBA ethicality thing just throughout this entire year is what's going to define the season. Because there could be so many things coming out of this, which is either the change of the tanking rules, whether it's a change of the 65 game rule. And because of this one season that's putting all of this into the limelight, the spotlight, and the amount of people talking about this, I think this is what the NBA is going to be most noted for this year. In the craziness of it all, you can go with so many different storylines for this year. But I think the blanket term you can put for all of this is people just debating NBA ethics in so many different areas of the game. So I'm going to say that the winner for storyline of the year is just NBA ethicality, because there's just so many places where people have tried to determine, is this an ethical way of doing this? Is this an ethical way of doing that? And I feel like that word has been tossed around a whole lot in the 2025-26 season.
Yeah, I think the funny part about the conversation around ethicality this year is so funny, because I think that we are now learning in real time how to make this game entertaining again. I think
Yeah.
is the weird thing to have the conversation about. The talent has always been there. I think the talent hasn't been any better than the way it's been the last 5 years. I mean, you can make an argument that the last 5 years of the NBA since the 2020s, we've had a great influx of talent. If you also include, some of the guys that are older that, rounded out their careers over the last, 5 to 6 years. I think the league is as talented as it's ever been. The question we've always had is how to be able to encapsulate that in a way through 82 games that we get to see that every single night. And whether it's about things like the talent we bring in from a perspective of how you get to the top of the NBA draft, or
Yeah.
the 65 game rule, which I've never heard players clamor more to want to be on the floor than before this season. I
Yeah.
mean, TV, how many times did you even hear the phrase load management this season? You
No.
know, I
Yeah.
think it's funny because this season, I feel like it's hilarious how it works out that this season really put into perspective how silly load management truly was, because it felt like one of those, it feels like, looking back at it now, it was one of those things that teams were just doing because they knew they could. Players were just accepting because they knew they could. But the minute that it started to look like a thing where it didn't feel as just like
You could
feasible
do
from
it.
ethics, let's talk about just how it affects your money. When it didn't feel like something that was going to directly hurt them, like on a true financial level, or let's say even on a level of just how we view you in NBA history. TV, there. Think about some of the players that might not be able to make the All NBA team if we're going based off a 65 game rule this year,
Right.
right? It completely rewrites NBA history because of these questions that we have now about how ethical is load management and things of that nature. I think this year really put into perspective how much stuff was kind of just being let go, or kind of like being allowed to let it fly for so many years, because people hate load management, but they almost hate the 65 game rule more now, because you have to actually acknowledge that it is working.
It's yeah.
It's so backwards that it's almost backwards that it's hilarious, because it's created a hypocrisy that now it's like a nobody wins. It's a nobody wins type of situation, because the guys who weren't playing 65 games before are the same ones that are mad about the 65 game rule now, when they want to play and just were too injured, actually injured, to
Yeah.
play.
There's gonna be a lot of discussions this offseason. And honestly, we're already kind of I guess like kind of like preview like what's there to be discussed like this offseason. And again, just the word ethicality has just come up so many times. People freaking brought it up during the freaking All-Star game, saying like this whole tournament thing is not ethical. Like this is not the NBA All-Star game and stuff like that. People promoting themselves to win MVP is not ethical. I don't know, man. It's just I feel like I've heard that word so many times and just so many facets of the NBA this year. It's becoming like one of those bad buzzwords. You know what I mean? It's becoming one of those
No,
like
for
buzzwords of
sure.
the NBA. So I would say yes, that would be kind of my storyline of the year. It's going to be intriguing to see like how they kind of like per se like try and like counteract a lot of the things that they've been kind of bringing up this season, because I feel like I've heard Adam Silver's voice a lot this season more than previous seasons as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they do try to counteract a lot of this. So yeah, NBA ethicality gonna be storyline of the year. You got the Clippers. Clippers are multiple winners here, which is kind of crazy, which is hilarious. So
Yeah.
so yeah, those are our two again for the Hit Your Free Throw awards, the ones that we decided that we came up with. But Jay, final award, the granddaddy of them all, the MVP. Ever since Luca got dropped from the race because of the thing, who knows if he might still be eligible. He probably will still make All NBA once they kind of go through that whole investigation. I think they finally filed it because the regular season just finished,
Mhm.
so should be interesting to see if he's able to still make All NBA. But it's a 3-man race here for MVP. Who do you have winning it, Jay?
So, I mean, I've been on this race for quite some time, or I've been on this side of the race for quite some time, and I kind of just sticking to it. It it's been Shea Gills Alexander for me for a good portion of the year now, and I feel like it's not really wavered. I feel pretty confident in keeping it there, and quite frankly, I mean, like everything kind of agrees to it at this point. ESPN's latest straw poll had him winning by a landslide. If you look at any update from FanDuel or DraftKings, it has him pretty heavily favored in that regard. I mean, everything kind of points to Shea. And, Luca had a late run at it, still might have a chance to be in the mix for it, given that, he still has the pending dispute. Victor Wembanyama is there in the conversation. I think he has a better chance at DPOY than he does MVP personally. Um, Jokic, of course, is in the conversation. as well. Kind of always will be in the conversation. Um, but I got Shea. I got Shea, man.
Yeah, this is the way I viewed it. I felt like the first 2 months before Jokic got injured, I felt like Jokic was on his way to maybe regaining back to the MVP crown that he lost last year. The injury came. He struggled a little bit in that middle part of the season. Like remember when he came back, I think like they went on some pretty crazy slide that we did not expect from a Jokic led team.
Hmm.
But he's ending off the season super strong. By the way, 32, 13, and 11 to end off the season. And
Jesus.
insane. I want to acknowledge that. I just want to acknowledge that. Wemby, people are bringing back the two-way, the two-way play as part of the MVP discussion. Yes, he's had a very strong end of year, especially on the offensive end wise. I think that again, the defense is definitely going to help him here. I feel like it's not quite yet there for Wemby. If he continue like what he did over these last 2 months, like throughout the entire season and future seasons, he actually might have a damn good chance of winning MVP. It's just not the year.
Yeah.
Not yet. Jokic, there's just too much of that little patch in the middle where I can say maybe not this year for Jokic. SGA is my winner. And it feels like a boring pick, because it is. But in terms of start to finish, domination from one end to the other, the fact that somehow, some way, he's even like built off last year's MVP case and played even better than last year. Especially late in games, bro. Freaking Shai Gilgeous-Alexander late in games is like the last person you want to see holding the ball. If you're the other team, like it feels like it's automatic at this point. It's insane how clutch he is. And then I know we didn't talk about clutch player of the year. It's gonna be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as well. Let's be completely honest. So him incorporating all of that. Obviously, the insane stat line is still gonna be there for Mr. SGA as well. It's just like it's one of those things where it's start to finish. You just know that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been dominant as always. It's gonna continue to like just have these like insane stats, even more efficient. I mean, freaking 55% as a guard is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think people understand how crazy that number is. And Jay, one of the craziest stats I've seen this year, and I think like again, keeping in mind this is a guard who has the ball for most of the time, and like has the ball in his hands for most of the time. He has a true shooting percentage of 67%.
At the guard position is insane.
For a guard.
Bro.
I don't think people understand how efficient that is. The
Yeah.
scoring is there. I know this man has made a lot of enemies, not even on the court, just freaking of fans in general. People hate this dude. But man, one of the smoothest players in the game, one of the most clutch players in the game, dominant from start to finish. The team record is there. And you could tell, bro. Remember that stretch after they started off on that crazy winning streak where they won like almost 20? I think they won 20 straight games. That's when people started to realize, bro, when Shai's not on the court, this team is looking kind of sketchy. The Oklahoma City Thunder. And a lot of that is built off of the freaking dominance of Shai. We talk about this like where we've seen in years past off of a LeBron James, off of a Giannis. People tend to play well when this guy's on the court because of the gravity he brings. There's no way stopping Shai. And that ability and having that much of eyes on you, it's opened up the game for the rest of the team. That's why this Thunder team is so dominant, because each of these guys are able to play off of him. People underestimate his impact on this team in general. We can see a bunch of role players that play really well and think that, wow, this team can play well with or without Shai. This guy's the freaking focal point of the team, and I'm not hearing anything else of it. He is the MVP for this year.
I mean, we're lockstep, dude. I think this is one of those where, if I'm being completely honest with you, like I've felt this way for a good amount of time now, as far as the way this season is shaped out. And again, it was getting quite sketchy towards the midway portion of like March, where you got the Luka, you got Jokic versus Wemby. We saw that matchup like twice in the same week at one point, right? That started to really kind of make you wonder, like, oh snap, like this is kind of. This is one of those things where you're like, okay, wait a minute, like there's something here. But at the same time, man, I just think it's one of those things where I mean, you got to remember there was a point in this season where they were also missing Jalen Williams for a good stretch of
It's
that run we're
50
talking about.
games, right? 50 plus games they missed J. Will.
TV of the stretch you were referring to, Jalen Williams didn't play a single game.
Yes.
I mean,
Insane.
I understand they got crazy depth. I get that part. But I mean, the difference between this team with Shea on the floor and not is night and day. It is night and day. They're not like a play-in team without him. Don't get it twisted. But this team, when we start talking about championship, when we start talking about coming out of the Western Conference, he's the one who puts them over the top. They're a good team. They may be even a great team. Maybe they're the team that without Shea Gilgeous-Alexander on the floor, they're how like the Indiana Pacers used to always find themselves as like a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, but never could get past like the second round, right?
Maybe.
But with
Yeah.
Shea, you start having conversations about like, can they go back to back? Is this a team that could win multiple championships over the sport span of 5 to 6 years? That's the conversation we have when you put that guy on the floor.
Yeah. Clear MVP. He's shown again, even again throughout the season, he's seen like how important he is to his team when he's off the floor. And people are going to have to start having difficult conversations if he wins back-to-back MVPs. If he wins another championship, another Finals MVP, we're going to start to put this guy in some rarefied air. And I don't think people are ready for it. This guy's a generational player, one of the best guards of our generation. And he's going to start having those conversations where it's like, this guy's going to be an all-time great soon. You just have to. It's more of a when, not what, but when. So I'm excited to see how he does this year. But I do think he is the MVP. Those are all of the awards, Jay. Let us know down below what you guys think. Do you agree? Disagree? Do we have some guys that we didn't even mention that you think should be winning this awards that should be that haven't been discussed? I want to hear your thoughts on it down below. But Jay, today's the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching. Again, the playoffs are starting soon, Jay. We have a lot of basketball to cover soon. You mentioned WNBA draft. You mentioned the play-in playoffs coming soon. We're going to give all your thoughts on that quickly, but what do you have to tell these beautiful people before we sign out?
Yeah, man, so a couple of things to kind of note. Given that the WNBA season is like kind of in full effect now with the WNBA draft being tonight as of us recording this and free agency is in full swing at this point, I think you can definitely expect a lot more videos on the social media starting after the WNBA draft. I think I'm going to me and TV probably going to watch the WNBA draft. You guys already have known the names that have been drafted by the time that we drop this episode. We'll just probably give a lot more deeper analysis, or at least I plan on going through a handful of the different picks, maybe as some short form content throughout this week as far as how they fit. And also some thoughts on the free agency stuff. I really would like to, open up the social media a little bit more when it comes to talking about WNBA. I don't know how often we will talk WNBA on the podcast, just given the playoffs and how crazy this offseason possibly can be for the NBA. But I want the social media space and like the YouTube shorts to be a good spot for us to still quote unquote keep up with the WNBA. I don't want the WNBA to be forgotten on this channel because we do a really good job of talking WNBA basketball. It's just about how it weaves within the schedule of the NBA with Summer League, NBA draft, the NBA playoffs, and everything else all happening around that time as well. So definitely expect that. I plan on kind of binge recording some stuff later on after this episode, or maybe the day after as of this being recorded. So that should be a place that you definitely look into some WNBA content. And as far as NBA content, man, we're here, man. Postseason basketball is here. Again, as of you guys recording this, the play-in tournament, as of the day you guys see this, the play-in tournament should be about to commence. And so by the next time we record TV, we'll know the bracket. We should know the bracket, and that's going to be a really dope spot.
Yeah,
well,
no,
we should know most of the bracket.
We know most of the bracket for sure. Yeah, we're planning to record this basically like where we don't know the 8 seed yet, but we know like the 7 seed, so we basically know the entire bracket. Let's be completely honest. So we're gonna know most of for the most part. But yeah, like Jay mentioned, WNBA stuff. Be on the lookout for that in the social medias, especially our especially if you're a fan of the Toronto Temple, you should definitely come check out the TV on Basketball page. We are definitely gonna be stepping up there, but. Yeah, we have all that stuff coming up. We didn't talk about playing stuff in this episode or have an episode or two around that. So make sure you check out our predictions that we're going to be putting up pretty shortly. That we're probably going to do the day of the play-in, so be on the lookout for that as well. And of course, playoff prediction episode coming soon, Jay. gonna be diving deep into the weeds of this series, and I'm super excited to talk about that as the playoffs start to come up pretty soon. But yeah, today's another fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you check out all the social medias that can be found down below. We're gonna be back later on this week making our prediction for the NBA playoffs, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, this is the end of today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you all have a fantastic day. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out. Peace.